Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Connor always believed he'd found the right person. At 27, he was a talented programmer at a tech startup in Santa Cruz, California, a city known for its stunning beaches, alternative culture, and free-spirited vibe. Olivia, his 25-year-old wife, was a yoga instructor, and from their very first date, there was something magnetic between them. She talked about acceptance, freedom, and connection with nature, and Connor deeply admired her worldview. It seemed like Olivia saw beauty where others saw only the ordinary, and that perspective enchanted him in a way he'd never felt before. They met at a local music festival where Olivia was teaching outdoor yoga. Connor, who had never practiced yoga in his life, decided to join just to have an excuse to talk to her afterward. It worked. They spent the rest of the festival together, talking about everything from philosophy to sci-fi TV shows. 2 years later, in a May outdoor ceremony with a view of the Pacific Ocean and surrounded by friends and family, they said, "I do." Connor felt like he was living a dream. They rented a cozy cottage in a quiet area just minutes from Bonnie Doon Beach, a stretch known for its secluded shores and untouched natural beauty. Connor worked from home most days, buried in lines of code and virtual meetings, while Olivia taught yoga at a studio downtown and also offered private sessions. Their routine was simple but full of quiet moments of connection. They cooked together on weekends, took evening walks along the beach, and Connor felt like he'd finally built something solid and real. 3 months after the wedding, on a bright August morning, Olivia announced over breakfast that she'd signed up for an intensive online Italian course. Connor looked up from his laptop and smiled. "Italian? Since when do you want to learn Italian?" he asked, curious. Olivia shrugged, idly stirring her yogurt with granola. "I've always wanted to. You know, I dream of visiting Italy, and I thought it'd be nice to be ready when we finally go." Connor thought it was adorable and totally in line with Olivia's adventurous spirit. "That's amazing, love. It'll be great." Olivia explained the course included in-person meetups with other students every Thursday afternoon at a cultural cafe downtown, where they practiced conversation and learned about Italian culture. Connor fully supported it, seeing it as just another one of Olivia's inspiring ways to expand her horizons. He never questioned it. Trust was the foundation of their relationship, or at least, that's what Connor believed. Thursdays became the days Olivia left the house around 2 in the afternoon, always cheerful, carrying her big bag and saying she'd be back by late afternoon or early evening. Connor kept to his work routine, immersed in projects, never suspecting a thing. Olivia always came back in good spirits, talking about the people she was meeting, the challenges of Italian pronunciation, and even mentioning a few names, Dante, a guitarist, and Marco, who worked at a restaurant. Connor thought it was nice that Olivia was making new friends and broadening her social circle. But on a rainy Thursday in August, everything changed. Connor was in a particularly stressful virtual meeting, arguing over tight deadlines and critical system bugs, when his phone started vibrating insistently. He ignored the first few calls, but when he saw it was Jake, his cousin, calling for the 3rd time in a row, he answered. Jake rarely called, and when he did, it was usually important. "Hey Jake, what's up? I'm in the middle of a meeting, can you make it quick?" Connor asked, trying to keep his voice low. Jake hesitated on the other end, and Connor instantly knew something was wrong. "Connor, man, sorry to call like this, but this is kind of weird. I'm doing a photo shoot over at Bonnie Doon Beach, you know, that isolated part, and I just saw Olivia." Connor frowned, confused. "Olivia? She's in her Italian class." Jake took a deep breath. "Dude, she's not in any class. She's right here on the beach, and she's naked. Completely naked. And there are 2 guys with her, also naked. I thought you should know." Connor felt like the ground had vanished beneath his feet. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. "Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure it's her?" he asked, his voice shaking. Jake confirmed with sorrow in his tone. I'm sure, man. Sorry I have to be the one to tell you. Want me to send the location? Connor ended the meeting without explanation, grabbed his car keys, and asked Jake to send the exact spot. As he drove down the winding road toward Bonnie Doon Beach, his mind raced. He tried to find rational explanations, tried to convince himself there was some misunderstanding, but something deep inside told him Jake wasn't wrong. Connor's hands trembled on the wheel, and he sped through the dangerous curves more than he should have. When he pulled into the makeshift parking lot near the trail to the secluded beach, he took a deep breath, trying to brace himself for what he was about to see. He walked the sandy path, each step feeling like he was approaching a cliff. The sound of waves crashing on the shore seemed distant, muffled by the buzz of anxiety in his head. And then he saw her. Olivia was lying on a colorful ethnic pattern towel, completely naked, her sun-kissed skin glistening as the sun broke through the clouds. Beside her, two equally naked men were chatting animatedly, laughing at something one of them had just said. Connor recognized their faces immediately. They were Dante and Marco, the classmates from her Italian course. He felt a wave of nausea, followed by a cold rage rising up his spine. Connor walked toward the group with steady steps, and Dante was the first to spot him, nudging Olivia and pointing discreetly. Olivia turned her head, and when she saw Connor, her face shifted instantly from relaxed to pure panic. She jumped up, trying to cover herself with her hands, then frantically grabbed the towel and wrapped it around her. Connor! What are you doing here? She stammered, eyes wide. Connor stopped a few feet away, arms crossed, staring directly at her. He didn't look at the two men, who were now awkwardly trying to cover themselves. You told me you'd be at your Italian class, Connor said, his voice low and controlled, but laced with a coldness Olivia had never heard before. Olivia exchanged nervous glances with Dante and Marco, then tried to smile, as if she could somehow downplay the situation. We were. The class ended early, so we decided to come to the beach, to relax a little. The weather was so nice and... Connor cut her off, gesturing around. Other groups were scattered across the beach, all completely nude, some playing volleyball, others just soaking up the sun. Relax, he repeated, voice sharp with sarcasm. Relaxing naked with two guys on a nudist beach? Is that part of the Italian course curriculum now? Is this some kind of cultural immersion I didn't know about? Olivia stepped toward him, still clutching the towel against her body. Connor, you're overreacting. It's just a beach. I've always believed in bodily freedom, accepting the natural body. It's not sexual, it's just... It's a lie, Connor interrupted, feeling the anger boil beneath his calm surface. You told me you were at a cultural cafe downtown. Practicing conversation. You didn't mention a beach. You didn't mention nudity. You didn't mention these two. He finally looked at Dante and Marco, who looked like they wanted to sink into the sand. Look, I don't care what you do with your lives, but dragging my wife into your activities and helping her lie to me? That's low. Dante tried to say something, but Connor raised his hand, silencing him. He turned back to Olivia, who now had tears in her eyes. How many times, Olivia? How many Thursdays did you come here instead of going to that fake class? His voice was starting to shake, not from anger, but from pain. Olivia lowered her head. Connor, please, can we talk at home? This isn't what you think. I didn't cheat. We didn't do anything but enjoy the beach and... I don't want to hear it, Connor said, shaking his head and stepping back. You built an entire lie. Made up a course. Made up cafe meetings. Created a whole story so you could come here behind my back. It's not about being naked on a beach, Olivia. It's about the lie. It's about the disrespect. It's about you making a fool out of me. Olivia reached out toward him, tears now streaming freely. Connor, please, let me explain. Don't, Connor said, turning away and walking back down the trail. He looked over his shoulder one last time and said, with devastating calm, you don't need to explain anything. When you get home, I'll already have called a lawyer. I want the divorce, Olivia. This is over. He ignored Olivia's cries begging him to wait, to talk. Connor just kept walking, his legs heavy and his heart shattered. When he got to the car, he sat in the driver's seat and stayed there for several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. 3 months. Just 3 months of marriage, and it was all gone. That same afternoon, still in shock but determined, Connor contacted a divorce law firm. The lawyer, a middle-aged man named Richard, listened carefully and explained that, fortunately for Connor, the process would be relatively simple. In California, no-fault divorce laws meant Connor didn't need to prove infidelity to get divorced. Plus, since the marriage had lasted only 3 months, there were no significant assets to divide and no children involved, making everything quicker. Olivia arrived home hours later, eyes red and swollen. She found Connor in the living room, sitting on the couch, legal papers spread across the coffee table. Connor, please, let's talk, she begged, voice cracking. Connor looked up, and Olivia saw in his eyes an expression she didn't recognize, absolute coldness. There's nothing to talk about. You lied to me repeatedly. Built a secret life. It doesn't matter whether you slept with them or not, Olivia. The betrayal is in the lie. It's in the lack of respect. Connor stood up, gathering some papers. I'll stay at a friend's place while this gets settled. You can stay here until we figure out how to end the lease. Olivia tried to move closer, but Connor stepped back. Don't touch me, he said, his voice breaking for the first time. I trusted you. Completely. And you threw that away for what? To be naked on a beach with 2 guys? It doesn't even make sense, Olivia. It wasn't about them, Olivia pleaded. It was about me. About feeling free, about not having to explain myself, about lying, Connor finished. It was about lying to your husband because you knew I wouldn't like it. And instead of being honest, instead of having an adult conversation about boundaries and expectations, you chose to create a fantasy and leave me out. That's not freedom, Olivia. That's selfishness. Connor grabbed a suitcase already packed beside the couch and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned one last time. You'll get the divorce papers in the next few days. I suggest you get a lawyer too. I won't make this difficult, but I won't take it back either. Not after this. The door shut behind him, and Olivia collapsed to the floor, sobbing. She tried calling Connor several times that night, but he didn't answer. She sent long messages, trying to explain, apologize, beg for a second chance, but Connor blocked her number after the 10th message. In the weeks that followed, Connor existed in a numb state. He moved into his friend Derek's apartment, who offered the spare room without asking many questions. Connor buried himself in work, putting in long hours in front of the computer, anything to avoid thinking about the shattered marriage. Jake, who'd been the one to warn him, visited regularly, bringing food and offering quiet, comforting presence. You did the right thing, Jake said one night over beers on the porch. Trust broken like that doesn't heal. And you deserve someone who respects you. Connor just nodded, staring out at the horizon. He still loved Olivia, or at least, he loved the woman he thought she was. But there was a crack now, too deep to ignore, and Connor knew there was no going back. The divorce process moved surprisingly fast. Olivia tried a few times to show up at Connor's office, sent flowers, even left a letter on Derek's apartment door, but Connor held firm. Olivia's lawyer argued the separation was rushed, that it was just a misunderstanding, but Connor's lawyer was direct. The marriage had ended due to irreparable breakdown of trust, and Connor had no interest in trying to save something already dead. During one of the preliminary hearings, Connor and Olivia saw each other for the first time since that day on the beach. Olivia looked tired, thinner, with deep shadows under her eyes. She tried to make eye contact, but Connor stared straight ahead, focused only on finishing this as quickly as possible. The judge asked if there was any chance of reconciliation, and Connor answered firmly, "No, Your Honor. None." The division of assets was straightforward. With only 3 months of marriage, there were virtually no marital assets to split. They agreed to terminate the cottage lease, return the deposit, and each go their separate ways. No alimony. No child custody. No financial complications. In a way, it was a clean divorce, at least on paper. 5 months after that devastating day on the beach, the divorce was finalized. Connor received the notification by email and, strangely, felt a sense of relief. It was official. He was free. Free from the lie. Free from the betrayal. Free from Olivia. Connor began therapy, at Jake's suggestion. The therapist, a calm man named Dr. Martinez, helped him process not just the betrayal, but how quickly everything had collapsed. 3 months of marriage doesn't mean 3 months of relationship, Dr. Martinez explained. You invested years in her. You built a life. You had plans. The grief is real, even if the marriage was short. Connor agreed. He was grieving. Not for the Olivia he'd met on that beach that day, but for the Olivia he thought he knew. For the woman who talked about acceptance and freedom, but hadn't had the courage to be honest with her own husband. Months later, Connor slowly began rebuilding his life. He moved into his own apartment in downtown Santa Cruz, a smaller space, but entirely his. He started hanging out with friends again, picked up old hobbies, and even began taking rock climbing classes at a local gym. He wasn't ready to date, not yet, but he was learning to rediscover himself outside the context of a relationship. Through mutual acquaintances, Connor learned Olivia continued going to Bonnie Doon Beach with Dante and Marco, and had even started dating Alessio, another regular at the beach. Connor didn't feel anger hearing that, just a distant sadness. Olivia had found her path, even if that path didn't include honesty or respect for others. A year after the divorce, Connor was at a cafe downtown, working on his laptop, when he accidentally spotted Olivia across the street. She was with a group of people, laughing, looking carefree. For a brief moment, Connor felt a pang, not exactly of longing, but of recognition that this person had once been central to his life. But then he turned back to his laptop, finished his coffee, and carried on with his day. The lesson Connor learned from that experience was simple but profound. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and when it's broken by selfish choices and deliberate lies, it can't be rebuilt. He promised himself he'd never ignore his instincts again, never let anyone make him feel foolish for expecting honesty and respect. And above all, he learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply walk away, even when every part of you wants to stay and try to fix what's broken. Connor was okay. Not perfectly, not every day, but he was on the right path. And that, he realized, was enough. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.